We did a lot of math last time for the first week of class. We'll skip a little bit of the math today. Today will be your last non-math day. What I want to do today is talk about the goal of this class and why we're going to study statistics and why it's going to be useful for you. And then once we have a firm grasp on that in about 40 minutes, then I can give you your first homework assignment. And we can talk about how to do that. All right? But before I start, as always, any questions about anything? Yes, Danny.
So for the homework, are we going to have a textbook?
Yes. You need the textbook.
I was going to get it, but I just dropped it.
Sorry. I'm just as important as the other classes. Please get your textbook. It's actually not badly priced for statistics books. They usually run between $120 and $150. I think this one's under $80. So do your best. You can rent it for $40. You can rent it for $40. Although
I don't know what they do at Ace. I gotta use one at Ace.
yeah, check Amazon, check half.com, whatever. Okay. So, but yeah, you kind of do need it. Sorry. Any other questions about anything? All right. So as I said, what I want to talk about today is why statistics and why is this class going to be beneficial for you. All right. So what is statistics? I just borrowed this from the internet somewhere. All right. What is it? Statistics is the science. Hey, we're science now. Awesome. Science. I should get a lab coat. Of collecting, organizing, summarizing, and analyzing data to answer questions and/or draw conclusions. The whole analyzing data part of this is what statistics is to me. But you notice you can't just go straight to the analyzing. Collecting. So one of the first lessons we're going to learn in here is how to collect data. Organizing. How to take that data and put it into a package, a file, a format that you can then go on to summarize. And the summarizing is the very first statistics we'll do. Measures of central tendency. How to take a large data set and combine it down into one representative number, like a mean. And then finally, the and part. Analyzing data to answer questions and draw conclusions. I don't think really draw conclusions. It seems a little awkward, but that's what we're going to do. And that's the last part of the class, right, is the conclusions part of it. But what I want to talk about today is why we use statistics to do these things. So why do we care about this? Why should you be here not just because it's a core curriculum class? Well, you'll end up with some skills. Statistics allows us to use evidence to check whether our beliefs are true. Why is that important? Why do we need to know whether or not we believe is true? Because if it's false, you don't want to believe it?
Base decisions on false ideas.
Okay. If we use our beliefs to guide how we live our lives, we need to know whether or not those beliefs are true or not. Right? Somebody want to argue the opposite of that? Say it doesn't really matter? Freedom. Nobody wants to do that? Okay, I'll let that one go. I win. So we're avoiding wrong answers to questions in our lives. And we'll come back to this in ways in which we can have statistics help us with our daily lives. The other thing that statistic allows us to do is find patterns in life and in data that can lead to discoveries. This is actually a job. You can go onto a company's website and they will advertise for this position. Does anybody know what this looking for patterns is called outside of this class in the real world? Yeah, there's a better term. Analyst, yeah. Actuary is something different. Actuary is trying to decide how long people live. Kind of creepy, but kind of cool. An auditor? Nah. No. See, okay, I'll open up my mind and let you read it. Read my mind. Lead to discoveries. This is known as data mining. You heard of that before? See? I didn't make it up. We're not talking about the 7 dwarves miners that are out looking for diamonds or jewels in the mines while Snow White's back home making up dinner. Right? Data mining, and also a new phrase that we have in our vocabulary. I love this. As an industry, big data. Why? Big data's out there. So yes, statisticians, analysts, they would work for a data mining company. Find pattern to lead to discoveries. Now, I'm a political scientist. What information do you think we should data mine that would be of interest to a political scientist right around now until the first something of November? Polls and stuff? Danny? What about the election? That's the winner right there. So the Mitt Romney campaign was the first one that really did this to such a degree that we thought it worked. What the Romney campaign did was they set up a data mining shop and they tried to figure out who were the likely voters that they should, let's call it, touch or get into contact with. All right? So I'm going to touch Nick because Nick's cool. All right? I just want to give him a nudge. Wow, you're big. He doesn't move very far. All right? I just want to give Nick a little tiny, I'm not even going to do it now, a little tiny nudge. All right? A touch. So that way I can activate or motivate Nick to vote for my candidate. And how I'm going to do this is I'm going to look at all the people who already we think are going to vote for us and what sort of characteristics do they have. And then I'm going to go out and look for a combination of those characteristics in other people. Play along with me. Do you subscribe to any magazines? Yes, Nick subscribes to magazines. Nick, are you a hunter? Yes. What do you hunt, Nick? Animals. Good thing he didn't say humans. Nick hunts animals. Now, if I have that piece of information, Nick is an avid hunter. That piece of information might be more important than other pieces of information that I would already have out there, like Nick's gender, Nick's race, Nick's age, where Nick lives. But the fact that he hunts, and I can also get that information by getting state hunting license data, and I combine that with Nick's magazine subscriptions, Nick might be different as a hunter than he would be as a young black male. And I, in the Romney campaign, might want to reach out and touch Nick, because I know that people who are hunters are more likely to vote Republican. All right? What do they look at? Everything. Magazine subscription data is a big one, because it tells me what your interests are. Whether or not you subscribe to the newspaper. A lot of states will sell off the data that they have on you. So when you go to register your cars, that's data that's associated with you as an individual. So if they were to look at my car data, they would find that at my household, there are multiple cars. They are American made. They are SUVs. One of them is a classic car. And what else would they find out about me? Also American made. And they would find out whether or not I have loans on those cars, because whether or not it's a lien holder is filed on the title or not. They would also, if they collected this data over time, know the frequency in which I change my cars. The answer is never. Right? You drive it till they die. That's state data. They can get that from the DMV. They can get voter registration data. They can know how frequently I vote. Do I vote in the primaries? Do I vote in the little tiny primaries for that one race of local government? I had a candidate show up at my house, Mike Ryle. He used to own Rotelli's across the way, but he sold it, and he ran for the state house, and he won. And he showed up at my house one day, knocked on the door. I opened the door, and he acted like he knew me. Never met the man in my life. Never even ate at Rotelli's when he owned the place. Hi, Frederick, how are you? Hello, creepy random man at my front door. What may I do for you? Hi, I'm Mike Ryle. And then he goes on to his spiel, and he just wants to make sure that I'm going to come out and vote in the Republican primary for the state election. So this was in an off year. Okay, sure, I'll come out and vote. The guy he was running against was a turd, and I wasn't going to vote for him anyways. The turd, not Mike Ryle. So I'm like, yeah, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Is there anything else I can help you with? No, I'm fine. Just wanted to say hi to you. Thinking he's going door to door, right? I was half expecting him to ask me to put a sign in my yard. My wife walked by. He actually knows my wife. Hi, Samantha, how are you? Good. Do you want to say anything to Sam? No, that's okay. Just gets back in his truck and leaves. Doesn't go to my neighbor's house. Doesn't do anything. All he wanted to do was touch me, to activate me to make sure that I would vote. There's a macro-micro distinction that we usually make in economics, microeconomics, macroeconomics. That word micro has gotten into popular culture, right? That's known as micro-targeting, down to the individual level, right? Mike didn't want to talk to the people on my block. The only person he wanted to talk to was me. He didn't even want to talk to my wife, who I offered and is also a voter. Did not care. For some reason, his data people said, go talk to Frederick. Okay. We're starting to see this a lot more in professional campaigns. This idea of taking available data, even buying data. Anytime you guys use Facebook as a login, whatever company or app that you're allowing to access your Facebook account, they're going to say, this is the following information we're going to get. When they get your contacts, that's a common one, we want a list of your contacts, they're creating the ability to create a social network. Not the movie Social Network, but actual network analysis, where we can map who your friends are and find interconnections. I'm not a big privacy zealot. I still have Facebook and all that, but you have to be aware that this is what people are doing with that sort of data. And because people are doing it, there are jobs out there where you can do this. So we're not just talking about scientific discoveries, although of course that's still happening. People are taking probes that we had sent into space years and years and years ago, and the probes would send back radio waves and give us the raw data. We're still analyzing the data from the 1970s. I think it's the Voyager project, the one that was in Star Trek, the first movie, the first time around, not the reboot. And we're still analyzing that raw data, looking for more and more discoveries. Okay. Now, we're giving you a tool. You can use it, but you have to use it carefully. Because what we're doing in mathematics is making a series of assumptions. And if your assumptions aren't met with the conditions under which the data is generated or life actually works, then you could come to the wrong conclusion. And follow that down the line. If we get the wrong result, then we've confirmed our beliefs and we might have the wrong belief. So we have to remember that the results of statistics are always uncertain. And I like that, the use of that word certain. Because with statistics, this isn't the tool of the hard sciences. In the hard sciences like chemistry, biology, physics, they don't need to use statistics. They don't need to introduce probability theory into their calculations. Physics, force equals mass times acceleration. You might remember that from high school physics. Force equals mass times acceleration is the law in physics, a law of nature that is used to justify what law that we all abide by as citizens. Sometimes speed limit, there's a more important one when we're driving our cars. That our behavior has changed because of the recognition that force equals mass times acceleration. Seatbelts. Why seatbelts? Yeah, it's a very simple law of physics. Force equals mass times acceleration. What the seatbelt does is it ties your mass to the mass of the car, so that your force when you hit an object is dependent on the car's. So because the car weighs more, you are actually, and I hate to say this because you're going to make me sound like I'm a killer or something, you want your mass tied to the car, and actually if you hit another car, you want to make sure that your force is better than their force, because you're going to push them rather than them pushing you. So I'm not saying you should necessarily speed up into an accident, because that would be irresponsible. But if you know the math, you might be tempted. And that poor Prius driver never had a shot against my Chevy Traverse, which weighs 5,000 pounds. And was going faster than it should have as my force met its force. That's a law of physics. That is a certainty. And that's why we have created something like a seatbelt law. So you don't go flying through the windshield, because that's what happens. If you stop, if the mass stops and you're not tied to it, you keep accelerating. And out the windshield you go, or the window, or whatever. That is a law of physics. It is informed by our beliefs as to how force operates mass times acceleration. We know that to be true. It's a hard science. It is a law of nature. That has a degree of certainty to it. Statistics doesn't. Statistics is, given the data that we've observed, what sort of conclusions can we make about it? And we always have to remember that this is based upon probability theory, which means that there is a chance that you could achieve a different result. Back to the last example from the last class, right? One of the probability examples I gave you was rolling a dice. What is the chance that if you roll a dice 100 times, it comes up 6 all 100 times? Jake's trying to do the math. We'll wait for an hour while Jake... There's a lot of zeros in there, right? But it's possible. It's possible. There'd be a lot of zeros because you take 1/6 and multiply it by itself 100 times. So 1/6 to the 100th. It's a lot of zeros in front of that significant figure at the end. But it could happen, right? Even though it is very improbable, it is not likely to happen, it is still possible to happen. If we were to flip a coin 100 times, what's the probability that the coin comes out heads all 100 times? Again, another very small number, but it's not zero. Okay? We have probability theory built into how we do our statistics. So therefore, there is always a little bit of uncertainty when you use statistics. Now, if we're using statistics to make decisions about how we live our lives, we have to remember that. Now, we're not using statistics in the seatbelt example. We're using a law of nature. We have never observed when we, combine two things or have them hit each other that the one with the least force plows through the one with the greater force. It just doesn't happen. So when we live our daily lives and we constantly make decisions, we're doing it based off our beliefs, which are hopefully informed beliefs. Where's my public health people? I got one. Anybody else? This is for you. Okay? When making decisions, it's Friday, it's the weekend. Somebody in this room will make a decision tonight. Should I drink? Well, if you decide, yes, I should drink, you might want to drink red wine. Maybe not. Stephen says no. Stephen doesn't like red wine. He had that one night where he drank the really cheap red wine, he threw it up, and he's like, never again. It's like, I learned my lesson. The media loves to report on these health studies like red wine slows aging. So the more you drink, the younger you get. Well, okay, the more you drink, you stay the same age. The other one is about heart health. I actually had a doctor. I don't usually drink. I had a doctor say, you should drink a glass of wine every day. And I'm like, I don't like to drink. He's like, no, it's good for your heart. Really? Because I would think not drinking would be better for me than drinking every day. Thanks, Doc. People in their science. Okay. What we have here is somebody published a medical study that said, and based upon the sample, that people who drank every day had maybe a lower mortality rate, or lived longer, or lowered their cholesterol, or had less probability of getting heart disease, something. And then some reporter read a press release issued by the university and wrote a headline that says, red wine slows aging. we're making decisions in our daily lives based off of some study somewhere that we might have heard. And you know you are. And I won't call you out on it, but you all know that you've heard that one thing that you should eat or you shouldn't eat. Whether it's coconut water or that coconut oil thing that you put it in your mouth and detox or something, or a cleanse or a wrap. Bacon could be a carcinogen. Anything could be a carcinogen if you make it crispy enough, because it turns into charcoal and gets toxic, like steak. Steak is a carcinogen. Coffee, which is roasted and burnt, is a carcinogen. Okay. So we have to sort of ask ourselves, all right, what do we really know? And by becoming more literate in statistics, you can navigate the world that seems to be throwing them at you all the time. Whether it's about your personal health or whether it's about policies that we make. Are states with gun control safer or more dangerous? Go. Why are they more dangerous? Because who has the guns? And who doesn't have the guns?
The good guys.
The good guys. So therefore, states with more gun control result in more gun deaths. Chicago.
Or look at other countries around the world.
Or we could look at, say, other countries around the world and see that since, for example, Australia got rid of a lot of forms of private gun ownership, the number of mass shootings that they've had since that law passed has been zero. Now, all we're doing right now is fighting over anecdotes, right? One single data point. For every Australia, there's a Chicago.
It's not just Australia, though.
In our discussion,
It's not just
right? So when we, and it's not just Chicago, right? So, like I'm saying, when we make policy decisions, a lot of time we will use anecdotes or examples and sort of say, well, this proves my point. Well, statistics would come in and say, well, wait a minute. Why don't we do a longitudinal multinational study and look for, A, countries that have had changes in their gun rights, so we can measure both before and after. That changes in time series analysis called a shock. So we can introduce a shock and see what happens to the trajectory. And we can also do it multinationally so we can compare and control for things like previous gun ownership. Right? The laws that were in place before you changed the laws. Because what's the country where everybody owns a gun? I was going for Switzerland, but okay, some other European countries out there. But what don't they own? Bullets. Okay, so this is a very complex argument to make. Statistics would allow you to say, hey, it's complicated, let's study this in a systematic way instead of just throwing anecdotes at each other. And don't even bring in the 91-year-old grandma that shot somebody because he broke into her house. Because the NRA tells you about those every day. Okay. Those are anecdotes. So how can we know what is true when we have two examples that are true? We're trying to form beliefs here. We're trying to know more than just the anecdote. We're trying to arrive at a conclusion. Yes, there'll be some uncertainty because we're not dealing with hard science like chemistry, biology, physics. But we can at least make a better informed decision if it's done correctly. Because when you think about it, we in our daily lives accept truths from lots of different sources. Can I see your binder? Investment, like investment in a sports team. Cam Newton is the best quarterback in the National Football League. Right, Nick?
Yeah.
Right? Why might Nick say that? Nick might be invested in that. Tyra's like, no. She's a hater. All right. That gives us, in our belief system, a source of truth. If we have investment in a belief. Where does the fandom come from? Why are we fans of things? Our parents are fans of things because of what I like to call the accident of birth. The accident of birth. The idea that you're just randomly born to two random people that live in a random spot at a random time. So why are you a fan of the Carolina Panthers? Because I grew up in Charlotte. That's completely an accident. You could have just as easily been born in Germany or India or China or New Zealand. But for some reason, you were born in Charlotte. Therefore, you're a fan. Or your parents were fans, and therefore you'll be a fan. If you're not, you're going to be out of the will. Okay. Which leads me to the next one, authority. Sometimes our truth comes from other people who we believe not because we agree with them, but because they told us so. Man, I'm feeling really bad right now because that's exactly what I do to my kids every single day. Why? Because I told you so. Let's just do it. Put your shoes on. We got to go. You can't go to school. John, Daddy, why can't I bring my umbrella to school? Because you use it as a sword, and Miss Sally says no swords at school. Right? Not me. It's Miss Sally. She's the authority. That can give us a source of truth. So parents, community leaders, people who own their own businesses, they become the source of truth. And you do things or you believe things because they told you to, not because of any evidence. Logic can be a source of truth. We can sit down and think and strategize and try to understand if I do action A, it'll lead to consequence B. We try to do that in our lives. Faith is a source of truth. Why don't we, I don't want to be seen as picking on any one religion, but insert something you were told by a guy in a robe when you were young. Why don't we do that? Well, because the book that you were told to have read said that as well. You notice that all the religions have like a book? Whether it's the Book of Mormon or the Old Testament or the Old and the New Testament or the Quran. Like they all have a book. They got like a list of rules. There you go. And you have faith in it. And you believe that to some degree the stories in the book are real. Well, some are real, but some are allegories. And you have to decide which ones are which. So that whole part about stoning people, that just means, we don't actually stone them. But why does it say that? It's an allegory. Okay. And then finally, science. We have put, and I don't want to use the word faith, but I can't think of another word right this second. We have put value, there we go, into science. And where does that credibility in science come from? Not statistics. Statistics are uncertain. How do we find those? Theories, collecting data. You're all describing something that if you put it in a package, we could give it a name. The scientific method, right? We believe in the scientific method. That you have theories, you have observations, okay? And if I told Nick that I have a theory that your particles in your body are constantly moving, and you're not a solid. But that wall over there is also not a solid because there's space in between those. And if you just ran into that wall one time, you might actually go through it. You don't think so? Have you not seen The Flash? I mean, The Flash can run through walls. Why? Because he can do it. Science. Actually, there is a field of physics known as quark. They believe in the existence of an unseen particle known as a quark that basically says, theoretically, if you were to take an object and bounce it off a wall, it could go through the wall. But we just haven't observed it yet. So we haven't observed it yet, so we haven't proved it. But just because we haven't observed it doesn't mean we've disproved it either. So it's a theory. It's a theory that has not been disproven. Okay. I still don't see a lot of physicists running into walls, but things can happen. So we have all sorts of opportunities to allow us, based upon science, based upon study, to make decisions in our lives. And we do it in tons of disciplines. Male jurors more likely to find overweight women guilty. Man, that's rough. Gun control is counterproductive. All right, you think you found the solution to a public policy problem? Gun control. And what happens? It makes it worse. Jeez. Friends with benefits have safer sex, study finds. Okay. You really don't want to get pregnant with them, but you'll have sex with them. Okay. The theory is you're not in a relationship. So if you were to get pregnant, you really wouldn't want to have that. So actually the friends with benefit sex is safer than the relationship sex. Study finds. So remember that. If you don't want to get pregnant, have sex with a friend, not a partner. This is around us everywhere. We have to keep these things in mind. We've talked about this already, right? One of the things that we're going to do when we think about the use of statistics, we're going to have to separate out fact from values. Fancy word, empirically based. Empirically is a fancy word for data or observation based. Okay. Observed evidence. Faith in a higher being is not empirically based. Unless you talk to a friend of mine who says that when his grandma sent him money when he needed it, that was evidence that Jesus is real. Because Jesus told grandma, go ahead and send him some money. Why do I talk to people? Okay. So we are open, using the scientific method, we are open to opportunities and chances, but we're skeptical, which is why we have a method in place. And I'm going to get real scientific on you. I'd say that the scientific method creates an agreement reality, whereas we all agree that if you follow the same processes, that we can reach the same conclusions. So statistics and the scientific method working together, we're more likely to believe it, and then publish it in a newspaper, and then start drinking wine every day. And having sex with friends and not partners, and eating dark chocolate, because people really want us to eat dark chocolate instead of the milk chocolate, even though it doesn't taste as good. But it's better for you, because that's what I read in a newspaper, because of a study. All right. Yeah, we'll get to that. All right. So let's add the politics or the social science part into this. We have to remember that politics is a zero-sum game. And by zero-sum, I mean that if somebody gains, somebody else is going to lose. Now, budgets are zero-sum. I was talking about this with some freshmen yesterday. There's actually a cost to the university for student conduct issues. And I figured out one day that having an academic integrity officer costs the university somewhere between $15,000 and $25,000 every year. That sounds like a lot of money, right? So if you all would just stop cheating, they wouldn't need to hire me as the academic integrity officer, and they could then take that 25 grand and do something else, like a lazy river. So if you wanted a lazy river at Coastal, we don't have it because for the past 3 years they've paid, not me $25,000, but my service as academic integrity officer has cost the university $25,000. I haven't gotten any money. I just get course releases. I get paid not to teach. All right? That's zero sum. And if we're making decisions off of things that we believe to be true, then I'm going to stop buying meat because it's a carcinogen, and I'm going to buy more red wine because it'll keep my heart healthy. Okay. The other thing we have to think about is rights. Anybody see what happened in Texas yesterday? Anybody willing to say it out loud? It wasn't a gun ban. Campus carry. So University of Texas, UT Austin, they had a little protest yesterday. There's a group, a student group, cover your ears if you're insensitive to words like this, called Cocks Not Glocks. It is actually against their student code of conduct to possess a sex toy and display it on campus. But it is not a violation of the code of student conduct to carry a gun into a classroom because of this new state law that allows open carry. So you go to the grocery store and there's a guy with a gun on his hip. So they had this massive event yesterday where they were just handing out dildos left and right. That's a rights issue, right? So the argument is that the Second Amendment confers upon you a right to have bear arms. And every time I say that, I think of a guy with arms from a bear. Anyways. But at the same time, you as an individual have assembly rights within the First Amendment, and then there's academic freedom. And so do I have to teach a class in which students have guns on them? So we get this whole like rights battle. And usually when you grant somebody a right, the other person who disagrees with it feels like their rights are being taken away. We saw that in North Carolina with the whole bathroom thing. Like you have a right to only go to the bathroom in a room with other people you're comfortable with. Then there were people that were like checking genders. Like, I'm sorry, you want to check my gender? No comment. All right. When we add politics or other social behaviors in it, like who you sleep with, what food you eat, what laws are put into place, what we're doing is kind of raising a normative question. Normative questions and statistics don't go together very well. A normative question, in my last minute, is typically a should question. So, should students bring guns into the classroom? We can argue about that. And we can find justifications for it. More good guys with guns, less chance you'll walk in and try to shoot up my class. That's a good thing. More students with guns increases the probability that one of you will get upset at me and shoot me. That's a bad thing. So what we need to do as part of what we're going to do with statistics is recognize this difference, and we're going to go towards the empirical. We can still have debates, but we have to do it in the way that is evidence-based rather than this is just what I agree because this is what I think.